Okay, it says Hangout is on air live now. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Hazmat Guys Nation Roundtable. This is a multimedia platform to bring hazmat response information and training tips from hazmat members from around the globe. I am Jason, and I will be acting as your host for the show tonight. I am joined by Dr. Bobby Salveson and Bob the Kosh. I'm going to screw this up. Kashinano. Did I get it right?
Nah, that's close enough. Screw it.
What's up, fellas?
How much? How's it going?
Doing well. How about you there? Bobby's the only one at work.
Yeah, I'm living the dream. You know, I'm sweating my butt off up in my little crow's nest up here, and you can't put it on any fans or anything because the sound gets in the. It dampens the angel voice.
I like the toilet trap drain right above your head, by the way.
Yeah, and it drips. So.
Oh, and you got that going for you.
Yeah, which is good. So, yeah, we're good.
But then when he's done, he'll have total consciousness.
Yeah, so I got that going for me.
Our friend Phil Ambrose, who is on, I think it's Engine 24 out there in California, is at work tonight and may or may not jump in. I know he's riding the seat, and they've been dispatched to a couple of calls today and had some stuff. And our friend Mike Monaco, it just depends on how and what day you listen to the podcast, what his last name is.
If he's got dress pants on, it's Monaco.
Yeah, it's very, very fancy.
If it's shorts, it's Monaco.
Okay, all right. So he is not going to be with us tonight. He's got a prior engagement. So you guys, let's jump into this. We got some interesting stuff to talk about. The first article that we talk about here in the nation is from Sarasota, Florida. If you're watching the news, this is late-breaking stuff going on, but it was reported that 2 people were found unconscious in a home on Monday morning, and both have since died. Emergency crews responded to the home around 11:30 a.m. after a family member called 911. So I'm assuming that they discovered them there at the home. Hazmat crews were also called to the scene. Police said one of the individuals was pronounced dead at the scene, while the other was taken to Sarasota Memorial Hospital, in which they later died. Neighbors said that a woman and her special needs son lived at the home. Police identified the victims as a mother who age was 78 and her son was 58. The quotes are, "The hazmat situation that occurred earlier this morning involved exposure to drain opener chemicals," a police spokesman stated. Detectives believe the exposure to the drain opener chemicals caused the 2 deaths, and they are still investigating. This afternoon, from WWSBA ABC 7 in Sarasota, the late-breaking update was that the death of a mother and her son involving drain cleaner throughout this home was thought to be a murder-suicide. The Sarasota Police Department now say the death of the 2 people involved in the drain opener appears to be a potential murder-suicide. The 2 were found unconscious by a family member Monday morning and later passed away. The Sarasota County Hazmat team has cleared the house and all chemicals have been removed.
Interesting.
You know, it kind of brings up an interesting topic because there's been some discussion. I know we've mentioned chemical suicides on the show several times. And we're actually going to be doing some of that stuff. Well, not actually suicides, people. Calm down. But we're actually going to be doing some classes of it in October at Firehouse, Nashville. But you know, it brings up something interesting because there's been a lot of talk of these suicide bags, and I've really only heard of a couple suicide bags. Everything else is this kind of stuff. It's either it's very out there in the open. It's not so much contained or whatnot. So I think there was a very slight, if you will, reduction in people worrying about, oh, we're not going to walk into something because they're containing it, but actually we still could very well be walking into stuff like these guys did.
Yeah. I've run across a few of these. I'm going to say I'm pretty much 50-50 on the bag, which is the gaseous way, or the liquid way. We had one guy a while back that actually drank a good amount of sodium hydroxide, a very strong drain cleaner in the base side, and he Wow, you know what? I actually saw some of the autopsy stuff, and that guy, his stomach was like Swiss cheese. I mean, that stuff just eats through you. It's a tough way to go, we'll say. You know,
Oh yeah, I mean he must have been burning obviously right from the get go.
right
That's
from the top, and you know
wow.
that that takes determination, I'll say. But either way, like, you know, as far as us going into these things, sodium hydroxide, you know, is kind of a, and I'm assuming it's sodium hydroxide. You know, I'm thinking about it that you can have drain cleaners on either side, the acid or the base side. But I'm going to say normally it's the base one because it more eats the organics. You know, and that's what you really normally have in the drainage. You're going to have that the clump of hair or the grease from the scalp and stuff like that. So they usually use the base to do it, but those bases are kind of docile. They don't have high vapor pressures. They don't have. I'm not saying you can't, you know, but you know, it's kind of an easy cleanup as far as us if we have this stuff spilt on the ground. I'm thinking just on a purely PPE. I think even like SCBA is probably going a little far.
Yeah, you know, looking at just what I read about it, and I started thinking drain cleaner. Like you, I'm thinking, okay, sodium hydroxide, but there are some that have sulfuric acid.
Yeah.
So then I started thinking, okay, well maybe he used that and mixed it somehow, caused the gas to release. I don't know. Yeah, Mike, test, Hazmat Woody, you're on, buddy. We see you. But so yeah, I mean that could really go either way.
Right.
You know, the one thing that I think is interesting, though, and it didn't give a lot of detail is into this, is from the chemical suicide that we were involved with. You know, did they tape up the house? I mean, you got to kind of control that stuff because to get to the IDLH, you know, there's got to be some control because there's some natural ventilation going on in the house. So, you know, I got to wonder. Are they trying to mix hydrogen sulfide? If they did, they were going to. I mean, you're talking about trying to a fairly elaborate and a fair amount of a gaseous state of a compound, whatever that is, right? So if it did in a house, I mean, the car is easy. You know, I can dump in the car in the seat. You know, you're talking. What are you talking? 30 square feet maybe in a car. So, but a house, you're 100, 200, 300 square feet. So it's something. You know, I'm really looking forward to see kind of what the after action for this is because is it, you know, were we mixing bleach with ammonia? Were we doing some sort of exotics? Were we doing the drain cleaner thing? You know, they talk about a drain cleaner. Most of the stuff that I use at home is a base, like Bobby was saying. You know, and it's got a high pH. So. Something that's over the counter, if you will, or something you can go to the hardware store and buy to fill up your house with this deadly concoction. I'm interested to see how this comes out so we can combat this issue.
Well, and the other thing too is, I said one person was taken to the hospital. You know, did the guys on scene? It'd be interesting to find out. Did they notice? You know, that goes back to that first responder stuff. You know, the first engine company or rescue company get on scene. Did they already have information? Like one that we had where we were kind of told, hey, this guy's using a barbecue grill in a bathroom. But did these guys have any clue or did they walk into it? Number one. Number two, once they found out what it was they were doing, you know, I wonder what their decon was and what type of, you know, alert system they gave the hospital. You know, that article I did talked about the hazmat alert, and if you guys haven't heard about it yet or whatnot, Firehouse, you can go to HazmatNation.com and get the article that I did, but it talks about the hazmat alert. So if you guys don't have that sample protocol is in that article. Use it, you know, call me whatever if you want, but it gives us the ability to notify the hospital so that they don't start breaking out their trailers and locking down the hospital and shutting stuff down that they really don't need to just because, oh my God, we saw a chemical in a bathroom.
Right.
So be interesting to find out what they did.
You know, one of the things I got to ask on this one, and you guys are probably not going to know the answer, is how do they know it was a chemical suicide? Or, you know, at that point, it could just be an EMS run, right? It could be just medical. You know, two people had a problem, and but you hope to have, if we're doing the gaseous thing, which again they're going to use either a chemical asphyxiant or a something that displaces. A lot of time, well, actually, every time I've seen it, they've been nice enough to write a note, and tell us, hey, listen, don't come in here. There's some bad stuff going on in here. Get the hazmat team and prepare. And you'll see those indicators, such as tape around the door frames, or you're going to see, windows closed, that kind of stuff. So that kind of gives you the indicator. In this one, you may or may not. I mean, they can just be laying on the floor, maybe with the container next to them. So I would say the drop back is to SCBA, back up, and then start coming in with your full cache of meters to find out what's going down.
Absolutely, and it's also another reason for EMS or fire to start bringing in some type of single sensor meter on EMS equipment. Make it part of your first due engine company cache, if you will.
See, all of our EMS and every officer in New York, they wear a CO detector, and they also are wearing. They're supposed to be wearing like a dosimeter for radiation as well. We do not have. At least I don't think they're supposed to be going into just regular EMS runs with the full gas meter running. And if they are supposed to, they're probably not doing it in the first place. It's just not something that's usually used. So the dosimeter is used a lot. The CO meter runs all the time. We have one of those disposable jobs that runs for like 18 months kind of thing. It works.
So it's interesting that you say that, because when I hear, and I'll just throw this out there, I hear the CO meter, which is probably one of the most common things that we take runs on. You get the alarm with illness, you get the alarm without illness, whatever. You find people that are sick, and your meter's going off, and then you guys carry the dosimeter, which is probably the least of the things. Although you want to know, obviously, if you walk in and that thing alarms, you're probably looking at it going, this thing must be broken, because it never goes off, right?
Yeah, it's exactly. You know what? We get a lot of times the radiation pings because, people have the Tech 99 radiation. They did a stress test, and they go crazy because the guy, whatever, he urinated in a corner, and now and then the guy left, and now they're pinging. So we get this as a hazmat run and that kind of stuff. But not getting off track on this thing. These types of scenes, typically the first due engine truck EMS is not going to be coming in there thinking hazmat until they see the people and they start putting one and one together, and they start saying, wait a second, we got to pump the brakes here, maybe make this a hazmat run.
Right, absolutely. So. And I think that's where, like we've mentioned it time and time again, hey, let's slow up a little bit. I hate to say it, this is going to sound kind of harsh. Anybody that knows me knows I don't have a lot of feelings anyway, but we need to slow down and think about ourselves and our crew. Remember, we're not the ones that dial 911. It doesn't mean we, to be very blunt, we drag ass, but it means we're cautious, and that's what we need to be. Is we need to be a little bit more cautious all the way around.
Let me just, for argument's sake, let me be the devil's advocate. Of
course you are.
Let me say this, because I think there's a class coming up somewhere about hazmat meeting rescue. It's Virginia Beach, if I'm correct. We'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the show. But there is that gray area between, let's slow this down, let's take our fog out and go through the 8-step process, or is there a viable chance of rescue inside?
Absolutely.
Right? So it's a tough call. And it's one that you got to be willing to at least be able to make if you're riding the seat, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm the officer pulling up on something like this, depending, again, we don't know the dispatch information they got, but it could have been a simple well-being check. We pull up, and again, going back to slowing up a little bit, we used to go on these well-being checks, and we'd force the door or pop a window and jump in and see if anybody's there. Well, there was a fireman that got shot by doing that not that long ago. So now when we go on, at least for my department, If everything is locked up, we wait for PD to get there, let them break the door down, and go in and search the house. We're going to do our due diligence to look through the windows and whatnot to make sure they're not walking into any harm's way. But, you know, we got to look at all kinds of things. Somebody could have a gun. There could be, you know, a trap set for us or what. I mean, there's so many different things that we have to look at now that we didn't have to, you know, even 10 years ago.
Right. I agree with that. Different
Yeah,
game.
I think so. I completely agree with that. And, you know, interesting family member shows up. They obviously know the situation. You've got, it sounds to me to be an elderly mother and a special needs son in his late 50s. You know, you don't know the situation. I would assume, just like you guys, there's probably a note or something that leads them to make this rapid determination of this. I've not seen an unknown investigation release this much kind of information that quickly without having maybe that sort of thing, you know, the note left or the sign up or something like that. I completely agree. But PPE, I mean, I think this is a no-brainer. It's SCBA and turnout gear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Bobby said, that's probably pushing it.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't. I mean, you know, you can, if you were coming into this thing, and again, like we you know, you got to take it for what it's worth. If I'm coming in, you know, EMS is already in there. You got to, you know, maybe the first due engine and truck were in there, and they came out and they give me the report. First off, if they're not showing signs and symptoms, I'm fairly sure that I'm not going to show signs and symptoms, but I'm the expert. So I'm going to have my pH papers out, maybe wet on the left, dry on the right, and if they start changing, then I stop, back up, and I reevaluate my selection. That's it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, you know, the whole canary thing. What are they doing on scene when you arrive? If they're inside and they're having the conversation, then, you know, you're probably pretty good.
Right.
If they're all standing at the street in what I call the ring of death, you know, because wherever that death is hovering, there's always those ring of people outside it. You know, that's how you know something bad's going on, because they're 15 feet away. But you know, those are all signs and symptoms, like you're talking about a medical patient. But the reading the scene, I think, is the thing there.
Right.
So,
and that's half of
all right.
PPE selection.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're trying this new format. We're going to try to make this thing a little bit faster. So we're going to move on to the second story here, and this one, emergency crews examine a substance on an American Airlines flight. Right, so red flags, you know, sort of sirens going off in your head. This one comes from Phoenix. We have a good friend out there, so maybe we can get some more intel from that at a later time. But Phoenix Fire Department crews are checking passengers on an American Airlines flight after they got a hazardous materials call at Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. A spokesperson from the Phoenix Police Department says a cleaning worker, is how they were described, from the airline found a substance on a plane that had just landed. The flight was an American Airlines flight that had come from Guadalajara, Mexico, which is a little more difficult to pronounce when you look at the spelling, by the way. The FAA says all the passengers disembarked from the airplane at the terminal. Authorities are investigating what the substance is. When officials arrived, the substance was then missing, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me in the case, but the news report did indicate that there were no adverse effects on any of the passengers or any of the cleaning crew. So this is kind of a head scratcher. There's a lot of information and then none. So I don't know if that was found. I would assume the passengers got off and somebody came in to clean the plane and they found something or a substance. When everybody gets there, they call the all-skate and the rescue crews arrive, the authorities show up, and the stuff is gone. So, you know, what's the chemical physical properties of what they were dealing with? I don't have a clue.
Well, what probably happened is, if our buddy Jay-Z showed up, the chemical probably got scared and disappeared on itself.
Yes.
Because he's just that good. Or, more probable is that somebody thought it was, I don't know, maybe a white powder that goes somewhere else. I'm just saying, you know, and thought they got a freebie.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It could have been foot powder. You know?
Sure.
You know, it could have been anything. I mean, those types of calls, and I remember right after September 11th, we had so many of these calls.
And everybody called, yeah.
Everything was a white powder run, and then we started having to really throttle back these responses, and it's kind of, I think, maybe gotten throttled back way too much, where now we're just taking those possible true white powders. Maybe I'm not talking about anthrax because that was the buzzword back then, but something that potentially could be a hazard, and we're just disposing it in a garbage can.
Yeah.
Not really testing it.
Yeah, we've gotten complacent.
We've swung the pendulum to the other side, I think, as far as that. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you guys do, but we just had this discussion today. In New York City, we do not do biological. We do not test. We do not field or even send out. It's just not our thing.
ESU does it, right?
Yeah, our police and DEP, which is like a local aspect of the DEC. Handles that, and they usually bring in an outside contractor because that's their job, that's their expertise. So that's what they do.
And so that brings up a good point. We actually do the testing, and we also work with our health department, some of the acronyms you were throwing out there, I'm assuming is somebody that has something to do with that. But we do. And we send it to the state lab. They'll check it if we have enough to send to them. But we do, so we can do some confirmatory testing. We've got our ramen now, so there's some backup to the backup and that sort of thing. You said it. I got it right here. Jay-Z's book is awesome to look into the field guide. It gives you the 8 steps for what you need to do on the way to these calls. So. What do you do, Kosh? You guys?
Yeah, we have a we do test it. We have an algorithm chart that we follow. Obviously, I don't want to reveal how we test, but we do several different types of technology. Some very basic, some a little bit more technician savvy, so to speak. And then if we keep getting positives down this matrix that we follow, after a certain point, then we start making a lot of phone calls, and the black SUVs show up, and all that kind of fun jazz, and really, then we turn it over to the feds because it's not going to be our gig anymore. We're going to drop back into the supportive role, very similar to what Boca Raton did in 2001 when they had the anthrax at the AMI building. They dropped back to a supportive role. One of our retired members' spouse worked down there, and that's what they did. They did a decon for the FBI unit when they got down there. So, yeah, we're going to do some basic testing. By no means is it the gold standard like you're supposed to get from a lab, but it's a good enough point to where I know, hey, we need to shut this building down, or we can open it up, or roadway, or what have you, so we're not impacting everybody else. I could probably have it all figured out in about 15 minutes.
That's another thing too, because we as well do an algorithm, and I don't want to give too much away as well. It's our trade secrets, but there's legitimate threats, legitimate substances that we can go, hair on the back of your neck standing up, and then there's hey, this letter came from my ex-husband that's full of this powder, and he's a moron.
Yeah, and we've had those too. I mean, we went to an attorney's office not too long ago where, the soon-to-be ex-wife broke out his window, threw something in there, and it had white powder in it. Obviously, she didn't make anthrax. All right, you got to use a little deduction here. But what could have been? Could it have been a sodium hydroxide or some type of powder chemical that could have caused skin irritation? Whatever. So. Everybody gets lulled into the whole anthrax thing or whatever, but it could be some of these other potential hazards just from a strict chemical side.
Yeah. We honestly, we really do not go on these things, but there are times that we are called by, let's say, a chief that is concerned, and we're not going to tell him no, so we come in there, and typically what we do is we use like a dust suit. We use a THMGnation suit. We'll put the booties on. We're trying to minimize that possibility of any dust adhering to our clothes. So it allows us complete, well, I'm not going to say complete, but very close to complete, removal of that stuff, whatever might adhere to the outside. And we can run the gamut on these things. We can run everything from IMS to spec, mass spec to the Raman technology and all that stuff, which will give us those chemical signatures. But we do not have bio capabilities at least in the fire department, at least where I know we'd have it. But the police department does. So we can pull samples out using those safe practices that we do, and that the NFA teaches, that all these schools that are around there teach, how to do your evidence collection without impeding the FBI and stuff like that, taking little bits, tracing your steps in and out. You go in the same door you come out of, all that stuff. Because who knows? I mean, do we know that this guy was mailed this? Maybe they're manufacturing it there, and it's booby-trapped to the top. So you got, if you go into anything like this, as far as I'm concerned, I'm always taking that wide view and looking at those secondary devices. We were just talking about this today. We had a firehouse, and I don't want to get off track, but a firehouse was dropped off 4 cases of bottled water, and the chief says, "Listen, I don't know what's in this, so let's bring it in there." And to be honest, it was just 4 cases of Poland Spring water, but there was 2 garbage cans that had steel plating on top, and that's how they keep the raccoons out here. It was. But how do you know that somebody didn't drop something in those cans? And now you go over to those cans and pop the lids to see if there's anything in there? That could be the trigger. So with all these illicit things, and even on the plane, how do you know that baggie wasn't the bait? So that when you pulled and moved that, there was a string that went into the pocket, and there was some TATP or something like that in that pocket.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh. Well, and so that the law enforcement side of me says, well, why not create the diversion so I can get my drugs off the plane, or drugs off another plane? So yeah, there's all kinds of things to be thinking about when you're moving into this stuff. I'm going to hurry us along here just a little bit because we're 30 minutes in at least. Bob, is there's something you wanted to bring up? You had an interesting story you wanted to cover, some stuff you had pictures for or something before we jump in?
Yeah, just a we talked about this. Let me see if I can pull this up. Offline a week or 2 ago about doing some, just a round table kind of scenario-based thing here. And if we can make this share.
You have the floor.
So, there you go.
Awesome.
So basically what we're doing here is, just so you guys know, it's a building. So let's go around the table. We'll talk about this real quick. And with the people that are listening, just give it a look at it. And you're the first unit pulling up. And in your own mind, think about what you're seeing. This is just what you see there. It's an orange building. It's got some kind of signage over a doorway. That's that little blue half-ass arrow I drew there. But you get dispatched to this as a first due company for what appears to be light smoke coming from the building.
Okay.
So, Bobby, we'll put you in the hot seat. You're the boss pulling up on the first due engine company. You've got smoke coming out of say these vents right here, these windows right here.
It's a commercial building.
Right.
Honestly, I'm going to lean really hard on my pre-plans.
Okay.
I'm going to lean on my pre-plans and my first due knowledge of my area.
Right. That's a good one. And
I'm gonna say the same thing, but if you don't have that, and for those that are maybe listening to this on the podcast later, it's a one story, and this is something that we would come out with the officer. One story, industrial building, lights visible, smoke or haze from the A side, something like that, depending on where you're at, obviously. But it looks to me like there's a 704 above one of the doors, so I'm going to go with Bobby and start looking at exterior for other clues.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay.
And let's see if I can make that a little bigger. Yeah, that 704 is very hard to see. It's almost faded away.
Okay.
But what I'll tell you, knowing the building, is that there's 4s in 3 of the boxes, and the bottom box has got a W with a slash through it.
Wow. Okay.
And that's actual what it was.
I'm gonna park my rig down the block.
So that's what you got. But unfortunately, when you get inside, this is what you have.
Holy cow.
So you've opened up one of the bay doors, and there's still a light haze in there. How many people are going to be on their SCBA? You're going to be bunker gear. You're going to have your SCBA on your back. How many people are actually going to go on air? You know, we've got a lot of people. I was talking to somebody from another department not too long ago. They just got Nomex hoods 10 years ago. To me, that just blows my mind. But in this day and age, how many people are still with light smoke going to walk into something like this?
Yep. Absolutely.
You know? The pictures are kind of lame, and I apologize for that, but you've got one 55-gallon poly drum that's got a corrosive label on it here.
Yep.
You've got some type of cardboard drum here, and you've got several other drums and containers. Some that look like they're even leaching through in spots.
Yeah, I got to say the housekeeping sucks.
Yeah, that's just one room. Another room, actually the same room, here's a little bit better. You've got more corrosives.
Wow.
But you've got a hodgepodge of stuff here that could be reacting, and that's why you got that smoke or light haze. And then you come across that.
Cyanide.
So it's a metal fabricator.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Now, the irony to this whole thing...
I mean, I got that right? That's awesome.
You are... Extra points for you. I'll buy you a beer in a couple weeks.
Awesome.
We can... we'll go back to the front here. The irony of the whole place is that remember I talked about that W and the slash in that bottom of that 704?
Yeah.
Sprinkler heads were right over top of the acid vats.
Oh, boom. Nice.
Right, so
yeah.
What Bob just said is that usually you add acid to water, not water to acid. Because you get the explosive reaction to it.
Violent reaction, yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
so
that's not smart.
now, obviously I can't name the place, but the place has had a lot of violations over the years, and you were right though, it is a plating type facility. I don't even know if they're still open anymore.
We have a ton of those in the Midwest, and they almost want to call them like mom and pop shops that will open and then close, and even chasing them to make sure that their Sarah Title II stuff sometimes is up to date. So your Cameo is up to date for those of you that are not familiar with that. But yeah, so you've got your pre-planning stuff is there. It can be tough. And it goes back to exactly what Bobby says. You've got to lean on knowing your area, knowing what manufacturers are in your area. So that's a recipe for disaster.
And some of these acids and bases, I mean, just looking at some of these pictures, they combine, and this would be one of those things where I would want a good amount. I would definitely want my 5-gas. I definitely want my pH and a thermal gun, because we had a guy. I guess his name is Matt Dugan, and he had a whole bunch of acid spill on his head, and he is horribly messed up. You'd want the guy to walk backwards. He's so screwed up in the front. He's listening right now, so I'm just kind of totally making that up. But this stuff can get very exothermic very quickly. And especially when you have that sprinkler interaction, that would be. I cannot believe that buildings hasn't shut these guys down for just the single fact of having sprinklers in proximity to a strong acid, something that would warrant a 444 across a 704.
Yeah, and I can tell you from walking in there on a hazmat inspection years ago, just approaching one of their open bay doors, my eyes were tearing up, and I was still outside. I mean, we walked 3 feet inside. I'm like, yeah, that's it, we're done. So,
was it the same kind of business? So that's my question: is this a building that's been repurposed?
And nope, it's always been that business. It's been different owners, different companies, but it's always been that type of manufacturing.
Yeah, Mike Kimura made a good comment on while we were having a discussion. He said 360, Google the name of the building at the command post, see what comes up, and then find out what they make. So that's good thinking.
Yeah, and just, and the reason why I bring it up is the first due engine response. Maybe that engine company is at training. They're doing a drill someplace, and you're the next in, and you haven't walked through that building. That's not your first due area, and you come up to something like this, be careful. I mean, I walked into a building that I thought it was light smoke, and it was 50 bug bombs that had gone off. And my dumb ass was complacent, walked right in until I started getting a little tingling in my tongue. Went, oh boy, that's not what I thought it was, and that was my lesson learned. But we can unlock the sharing. So just a little bit of something there.
Interesting, very interesting.
So, just food for thought, just, and what I encourage you guys to do is you guys can go on Google, you can look up images, type stuff in, type in accidents, chemical accidents, whatever, and pull up these businesses, these buildings, and just do a quick roundtable. Do a Hazmat Nation roundtable, Hazmat Guys roundtable, whatever, Jay-Z Fog roundtable at the firehouse with these images, and talk about what you guys would do on a first due pulling up, man, because when you're through learning, you're through. Keep it real.
Yeah, I agree. Todd Burton says fairly standard for plating shops, and I have to definitely agree. Indiana is I think the largest steel producing state in the union, and there's a ton of this stuff here. And Cyanide kicked it off. That was kind of my first clue when I saw that stuff, and I could see it clearly because we have a lot of that. We actually had a guy steal some and was going to try to off his wife with it. So, the black SUVs and stuff. Everybody showed up. It was a huge ordeal. But know your area.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's all I had for that.
That's awesome. So let's talk about where we're going to be. We got some things coming up. 2016 Virginia Hazardous Materials Conference and Expo, September 13th through the 16th, Virginia Beach Convention Center. Beautiful place. There happens to be a couple of classes, a couple of guys I know are going to be at. Kosh, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, actually, Jason and I are going to be talking about the gray area where rescue meets hazmat, and just kind of like what we've been talking about tonight with the chem suicide stuff or this or CO or whatever. Kind of talking about how things happen. We also have Jason's got some inside information on a person that actually survived a chemical suicide that we're going to be talking about in the class, which is not something you hear about. And then we're going to do some hands-on hazmat, some HazSim challenge, and get some people in some suits and do some field work.
Nice.
I think it's worth noting, I got on their website today and looked as far as the registration goes. Man, it is really affordable. I think it's if you walk up the day to register, it's like $200, but if you do it before that, you save some money. So if you can get to Virginia Beach, which is beautiful in September, in fact, it's right on the beach is where we're going to go. But the cost, if you're within driving distance, you got to be there. You just have to be there. This is going to be a lot of good stuff. They put out the entire schedule, if you will, for everything, and it looks like a really solid show. So other than Kosh being there, which is a total reason to drive 8 hours to see this thing, pay your $200 to see the Kosh. I mean, I'm doing it. I'm there. But yeah, so virginiahazmat.org will get you to their website and give you all the information to get signed up to go. Mike Kimura, I expect you to be there. It's on the East Coast.
And actually, Bobby and Mike are going to be in Mass coming up, right? When's that, Bobby?
Yeah, it's September 20 through 22, I believe it is. Mike Kimura is going to be buying me beers the whole week. It's going to be great.
I hope he's working a lot of overtime.
Yeah, we're doing 2 classes. I'm doing one on fuels and the transferring of fuels in an emergency situation, and Mike is doing his ever-popular oxidizer shtick. He does pretty good. So.
Hey, I want to throw a shout out to Todd Burton. He shared his information on clandestine lab stuff, and we had it blown up in poster size, and that is just absolutely awesome. So if anybody can reach out to Todd if they need something like that, man, what an awesome resource he was able to provide. Also, we just bought the Hazmat Response Fog Guide for all of our guys, and it's hugely popular. So Jay-Z's book, again, like Kosh says, when there's a hazmat, it basically will overpack itself because it's scared of Jay-Z.
That's awesome. And then we've got in October, you're going to see these 3 ugly mugs and the rest of our cohorts in Nashville, Firehouse Nashville. As we mentioned every week for the last couple of weeks, they have managed to give us the keys to the kingdom, and they gave us a house. So we're going to have fun with that and do some kind of bunch of different calls, and a lot of it has to do with first in response. And what we need to do and think about and whatnot, and it should be you've got some sick-minded people here that are thinking up all kinds of crazy stuff for you people.
This is going to
be ready. Be ready.
Off the hook. Jay-Z, the Kosh, Phil Ambrose, the Hazmat guys with Bobby and Mike. I mean, it is going to be off the hook fun. Speaking from experience, at Firehouse Expo, October 18th through the 22nd in Nashville. Yeah, absolutely off the hook.
So, all right. That's it.
I think that wraps up another episode of the Hazmat Guys Nation Roundtable. Please be sure to follow us on Facebook at the Hazmat Nation and the Hazmat Guys. Let's go around the table and tell everybody and our friends that are with us currently where they can find us. Kosh.
All right. You can find me at Twitter at HZMTLT, hazsim.com, or the Hazmat Guys Nation Roundtable on Facebook. Like us on Facebook. If you guys are listening and you're not able to hit questions or whatever, go to hazmatnation.com. Right below the show, you'll see where it says Google Plus the show. That gets you in, and you'll be able to type in questions, and we'll be able to respond to you. So be safe.
Yeah. Dr. Salveson.
Bobby Salveson. I'm one of the 2 guys from the Hazmat Guys podcast, and you can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Music, and all of that other stuff. Take a listen. It's we try to break down these very complex terms and discussions into what we like to say a 5th grader can understand it. So if you go onto thehazmatguys.com, you can download anything you want. You can subscribe to us on iTunes. And we just finished up a series on PPE, picking out your PPE, where we actually do some live type. Well, it's not live because it's recorded, but we try to throw each other under the bus constantly. And we are doing one on grounding and bonding this week, and we are starting the whole PIES, which I really am not very familiar with. PIES. It's a term. It's Mike knows it. It's some term that's in the CFR regulations about hazard recognition.
A PIE?
PIES. It stands for something. It's a mnemonic for something. I don't really know what it is.
I'm thinking like lemon meringue or key lime or something like that.
Yes. That's it. That's all for me.
That's awesome. Hey, I've got another Hazmat Nation t-shirt behind me here, so as soon as this show's over, if you are the first person to sign up for our news alerts at Hazmat Nation, I myself will send you this t-shirt if you go to hazmatnation.com and sign up for the alerts. So the first person to do it after the show. There is another way for you to get one of these shirts. myself and the Hazmat Nation crew have been putting together. We've got some new things that we're getting ready to unfold, and I'm going to give you just a little bit of snippet of piece of the pie, if you will, how to get a T-shirt here. Email me at Jason, Jason, at hazmatnation.com. Send me some pictures of your hazmat rig, your hazmat team, your gear, whatever. Tell me about you. I will do an article on you. We're going to do this thing called Hazmatters, and it's going to be about the hazmat individual, the hazmat team, your trucks, your responses, whatever. So it's all matters of hazmat, but it's about you. It's not about us. It's about everybody in the nation. So if you send that email with some pictures and a little bit about your team or yourself or your experience, maybe your call, something like that, we're going to throw it up on Hazmatters. We will make you a premier posting on hazmatnation.com. So again, Jason, I'm Jason Rogers, Hazmat Nation. Jason at hazmatnation.com. We're going to get you on the Hazmatters section, so send that to me. And when I get your email, I will ship you out a Hazmat Nation T-shirt as well. So
awesome.
Please be sure and catch us next week's show live every Tuesday at 21:15 hours here on Google. Also, we'll be producing, Bobby will be producing a podcast version of this. And you can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, and all that other stuff he talks about, the Hazmat guys, Hazmat Nation. And that's going to be it for today's show. So thanks for watching. How about you guys? We good?
We're good. See you next week. Be safe.
All right. We'll see everybody next week.